Hi, I'm Billy Brown, board certified behavior analyst, and today I'm going to talk about some ways that we can use some new technology to help you study for your exam, work as a clinician, and just save you time across the board. So let's start by talking about what we're going to be using. It's a service called ChatGPT. What it is a language learning AI software that anyone can interact with. It's completely free. You can just go on their website. We'll leave a link down below to the website and ask it questions and it'll respond right back to you. So let's start a new chat here and just kind of show off what it can do. So we'll say, hi, what do you do? And it'll respond to you in real time. It can type things out for you. If you feel like what it's saying is getting a little too verbose, you can tell it to stop generating and it'll end its prompt right there, or you can tell it to repeat something. So more importantly, let's talk about how you can actually use this to become an RBT, a BCABA, or a BCBA. First off, it's important to know that the software is limited to information on the internet up to 2021. So if you were asking it about modern day requirements, it might not be able to do that. But what you can ask it about is some of the concrete things in our field. So if you're going to use this to study, you can type in a term that you're looking for. Like let's say I don't know what my compound schedules are. So I'll say, what is a compound schedule in ABA? Type that in, and it'll start generating a response for me. But it starts giving me a good definition. Now I could look up a definition anywhere, right? That's as simple as Googling. But I want to see what's a real example. So now that I have that in there, I can ask it, give me a real life example of a compound schedule. So then it'll start generating a real life example for you. What's really cool about this that I think will help you when you're studying is if you don't have a client that you've already used an ABA technique with, this will help give you a solid reference point when you're taking that exam. We know from the literature that you have an easier time recalling something when you've experienced it. So if you can take this example and try to really fix that into your mind as something that you've done, or even can find a parallel with a client, that'll help you pass those exams. So let's say that you've used this AI chat to pass your exam and help you study, gave you a lot of good references. Now you are a certified clinician. How can we use it to better our practice? Biggest thing is time saving. How many times have you had to think of an operational definition and you're stuck on what that first part is before you add your specifics? Let's ask the chat. Give me a operational definition for, let's say, nail biting. And you'll see it'll start spitting out an answer that's measurable, observable. And what you can do here is, let's say you have a learner who is engaging in nail biting and it doesn't quite fit what they're giving you. You can actually go back and tell the chat to adjust its answer. So it gave us here, placing one's fingers in their mouth and biting or gnawing on the nails or cuticles using their teeth. So let's say that looks good, but can we add language about using multiple fingers at once? And what it'll do is update that definition to include some sort of language about getting all those fingers in there. I know I picked kind of a gross behavior to define here. So that's an operational definition, and that's helpful. But let's talk about something that might be a little harder to write for a new clinician. Let's say you need to come up with a behavioral goal for an IEP. So let's take our same example of nail biting and ask it to write me a behavioral goal for an IEP. We can type that in, and what it'll start doing is coming up with this language. Now, what I found in my experience is when you're trying to use this to write an IEP goal, there's going to be a lot of things that you do have to tweak in here. So that's where it's really important to remember that you can tell it to change things about its response. If the response is just all around not great, try changing up your wording. A lot of times, because this is a language learning model, it can figure out how you in particular like your prompts to be. That's the perk of using your email address to log in. It can kind of keep some data on you. But as you can see here, we're given a pretty decent goal here. The only thing we're missing is criteria, right? So we can say, that looks good. Can you add criteria such as 80%? And it'll go back in and change that model up. All right, and lastly, and this is one that it's the soft recommendation on how you can use this software. Let's say you're trying to come up with intervention ideas. And the reason why I say this is a soft recommendation is because you're gonna really have to look at the recommendations and make sure that they fit your client. So let's say we are looking for interventions for a 6th grade student who engages in physical disruption. And actually, you know what? We're going to add in engages in, we'll say, attention, maintained physical disruption. And what you'll see here, it's going to spit out a bunch of like antecedent stuff, consequence stuff. You can make your prompt better by adding in more detail. So if you say, give me antecedent interventions for attention maintained physical disruption, you're going to see a lot better results from that. But sometimes when you're using this, I like to keep it vague so that way I'm not limiting the software to what it gets, because I know as a clinician what is appropriate and is not appropriate. This really just serves as a good jumping off point to get you through some of those early parts of report writing. In fact, right, so this helps with some of that behavioral momentum. If it gives us the answers, then we kind of have to just tweak them and make them fit our client. That's perfect. Now, you can even use this for some more complex things like social skills. I have a high school learner that I worked with recently where we actually did a little bit of role play back and forth. He had an easier time interacting with the computer than he did with people in our role play. He felt like it was a little less embarrassing. And it's a little too soon to tell if that is going to generalize into the real world yet, but it's an interesting application if it does work. So as you can see from the results that we got from the chatbot, you definitely want to make sure you're looking at these in depth. It is just a jumping off point, right? So like it just lists positive reinforcement, which is great. We know we always want to use positive reinforcement, but like what is the contingency that we're going to be using this positive reinforcement under? This is a tool. This is not meant to be a report writer for you. It's not meant to become a behavior analyst. This is something that can help you when you're stuck or you're finding like a little bit of that like lazy, no motivation, I don't want to get started. This can get you started and take some of that response effort out. So if you end up using this and you end up liking it, let us know. I'm curious to see what other interesting creative things that people come up with.